Hello, hello. Very nice to see you. Thank you so much for checking in. I can see there are some people watching on Instagram. Thanks for joining me. I'm Gail and I'm in the process of doing a large oil painting. It's a self-portrait. This is it. There is quite a bit of foreshortening on the picture. These legs are slightly emphasised, but I've got the camera set up for close-ups today because I'll be doing a bit of detail. So it's really lovely to have you. Let me just flick over so that people on Instagram can see the camera view. So here we go. I've got the camera here and it will also be able to show you my palette when that's set up. So let's leave it like that for a minute and do some introductions. How are you going? Sunday afternoon. Hope you had a good weekend. I have a bit of freezing cold rugby pitch action, and yeah, just looking forward to having a bit of a gentle painting session. I'm still trying to finish this picture. It's it's been quite a fastly painted portrait, really. I've not done any gridding or anything, but I have used a reference photo. So if you're watching on YouTube or Twitch or Facebook, you'll be able to see on the left of your screen is the reference photo. So I'm going to have that here on my tablet as well, so that I've got it to hand to paint from. So this is basically kind of 90% finished. It's got quite a lot of loose areas. Some areas like here you can see the, I don't know if you can see that kind of warm brown there, that's the ground showing through, which I'm going to leave in some places. I think it gives the picture a nice kind of sense of liveliness. The tiles I can actually show you, so those are the real tiles down there, and we have quite a, there's a bit of lighting differential. So I've got these tiles, they're a little bit cooler on my picture, I would say, than the real life tiles, but I'm basing my lighting more on the reference photo now for the final kind of situation, because I liked that lighting. So if I move this back, there you can see that's the whole picture, kind of, most of it there. At the moment. So the plan is, excuse this camera, that will go in a minute. So my plan is, there's a little bit of compositional stuff that I need to do. So I'm going to knock back some of the contrast in the background to try and make it just give a sense of studio background without dominating the picture. So I've got some areas of strong contrast that I want to knock back. As I reach the end, I'm going to come up with a few more opaque light highlights. So there's going to be a highlight there on the chair, which will then make sense of what's going on the sort of edge of the chair. I'll take you in and you can see. So let's go. So you can just about see there's the edge there of the front of the chair. Let me just come on to make sure I can see comments. So if you want to ask any questions, by all means do. I can see you on Instagram, so I should be able to see if you put any questions in. Yeah, so I'm going to do, I'm trying to be very careful about not just picking out highlights all over the place and leaving it feeling like a kind of sweet shop of sparkly things. So I'm really trying to lead the eye forwards through the painting and not even have too much contrast on the face. I want the contrast here. I want a real sense of the figure stepping back, like sitting, slouching back with absolutely nothing to prove, no sense of this is just the clothes I was standing in. There's a sense of like I haven't dressed up, I haven't put on any airs and graces or anything. I'm just like, this is it. This is the raw deal. So I also have some structural, just a little bit of the lines of the tiles. I kind of, went through them quite carefully on this side of the picture, but I lost track of them back here. There was some deliberation over, I was at one point going to include a Sports Direct bag that I decided that was a gritty realism step too far, so that's gone. So I just want to sort out what's happening with the tiles there and here, and so I'll just be using a stick, super low tech there. So I'll just be using a stick and following the kind of pattern of the lines. And something I really love in some paintings, where if you see something with like stripes, or in this case these lines, and they're moving through shadow just like that. It's just one of those things I really like, is when the painter paints those with a really different colour, and it looks strange close up, but when you step back it's really effective. So when you have like folds of stripy material, I think that's a really nice effect. So I'm going to resolve some of those, maybe put a little bit more texture on the tiles. And also the hands, you'll see they're unfinished. They don't need to. I don't want them to be particularly detailed, but I am going to put a bit more information, or maybe just glaze and homogenise the colour with the colour of the face, because at the moment the face is quite a sort of, it's like a kind of milky dead pink, like that kind of colour. It's like not particularly ruddy, and and then there'll just come a point where it's just, I know there are some painters watching, and thank you so much for following, and I don't know if you have the same experience, but I do find there comes a point when you just put the brush down, you just know it's done. So whether that'll happen in this session or not, I don't know. So just to reiterate, if you've got any questions or comments, don't hesitate to put them in the chat, and I believe I can see them. Let me just put a hello in there, and then I think there you can see that's where they'll come up. So if you're watching on a widescreen format, you'll be able to see some of the chat coming up there. Right, so step one is setting up the palette. So I'm just going to take you down like that. Hope that's not going to give you vertigo. You can see I've got one, see that? There, I've got one barefoot, one foot with a sock on, because I trod on the paint. I didn't want to walk it around. Right, so I have very improper habits, but there's yesterday's palette. So sometimes it's fine the next day, but I'm going to transfer this over. I think it's time for a real clean look. So I've got a little bit of that's a flake white, and so this is a Wallace & Seymour. It's a really nice paint, Wallace & Seymour Yellow Ochre Light. I've got a really nice Michael Harding Warm White that I really like, and yeah, so, and there's some other colours which I can rescue. Tend to keep a pretty limited palette. I like to make my black out of burnt umber and French ultramarine. So I've got a couple of globs of that I can transfer over, and then I use very sparingly because it's so slow drying, but I do use alizarin crimson. And where did I use? There was somewhere that was really handy. Oh yeah, sort of in the shadows around the hands. And it makes like a really nice kind of reddy black. And then I've also got quinacridone red, which is like a really pinky red, sort of slightly more pinky orangey. You can see from it when it's spread like that, there's the difference between those two pigments. And then here's the remainder of the French ultramarine. These, again, quite slow drying, and then burnt umber is an earth colour, so that is quite fast drying, so that's got a skin on it from yesterday, but I just don't like wasting it. So another tip, so there's my old palette, has gone. One could make a case for not using disposable palettes, but the nice thing about this is I don't then have to wash my palette with anything, so I quite like that. Not being the most organised painter, it gives me a feeling of being on top of things. So, and the other thing that you can do with yesterday's paint is you can mix it all up and make yourself a lovely kind of neutral colour that you can use to desaturate your mixes in future days. So some people do that, and some people put it in the freezer. That can make it last longer as well. If the music is too quiet, please let me know. I wonder, that might be slightly quiet. I would like you to be able to hear. It's just some nice gentle classical music, but I don't want to drown myself out. Right, and then I've mixed up some fresh medium. So this is, I keep my medium in jam jars like that, kind of wide, flat jam jars. I'll give it a bit of a shake. So this is a mix of cold pressed linseed oil, liquin. So the linseed oil is the oil element, and as I'm coming on towards the top layer, I should really have a bit more oil in line with the fat over lean principle, so to kind of help not have the paint crack. It smells absolutely delicious, I think. Zest It, which is like a paint thinner cleaner, which just kind of thins it out and also slightly speeds up the drying time. So the liquin and the thinner make it dry quicker. The thinner really makes it less oily, and then the linseed oil makes it more oily, so they kind of balance each other out. Yeah, and did I say that the liquin also makes it dry quicker, or cure, which is great when you're painting you want it kind of dry the next day. Right, so let's put that somewhere where I can reach it. And then this is what I dip my brushes in. It's take me a few minutes to get set up, and so I really like to do a longer stream, because by the time you've set up, it's quite a palaver, but then once you get going, you can make good progress. So it's just got like that. I don't know if you can see there. It's got like a kind of sieve thing in the bottom, and that is just Zest It, which is a paint cleaner thinner. So I tend to leave the lid loosely on it so that it will be useful for so it doesn't kind of waft out into the atmosphere. Right, so if you are on Instagram, you won't have seen a reference photo, so let me just take you to the reference slides and just show you. So that is basically the slide that I'm working from, and I have changed the angle of the leg a bit, but that's the reference photo. Okay. So now looking at my plans, I think I'm going to need a little bit more white. So I'll be doing some highlights. It's a warm white, so I have used cheaper colours and more brutal colours in the underlayers, and for no particular reason I'm using the sort of student grade burnt umber. Apparently it's the same pigment either way, so I think this, I say student grade, but it's quite a good quality, and I think it's just less this Georgian range, perhaps less dense pigment, but it's absolutely fine for my purposes, I find. And these are very nice transparent colours. So as I'm getting through to these later layers, I do tend to use more transparent colours, but the white, when I mix that in with things, it'll make them opaque for the upper layers. Right, so what shall I start on? Let's see. I think what I might do is start on doing these. Oh no, I'll start on the hands. Let's get them sorted. Right. So here we are. Let's make sure you can see those hands. What I quite often do is put the canvas, rotate it through 90 degrees. So I'm going to lift it off, rotate it, and then I've got a far better angle in terms of the light, and I can get the camera closer to show you. So hopefully there, and also I can focus it in. Actually, that gives you a bit of a strange, there we are, right. So, quite often work on the side like this. It's really, let's see if I can get it so you can see both. There we are. Right, and let's move on to the, do that. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and I will just focus it. Got this lovely camera. I used to use a phone camera for streaming, but if anyone's interested in doing streaming, top tip is that they sometimes autofocus themselves, which can be quite annoying. If you've got a hand with a brush in there, quite hard. Right. So, and then I will get the image itself up. So let's that. So maybe I can put that so you can see. I tend to actually drape this tablet very precariously over like that, and I've just got it up there. But you can use the reference photo, so I will zoom in on that, show you the hand. Give me a second, and I can get that section of the reference photo up so you can see what the there. Let's do that on top. Get my face behind it. There we are. Okay. So hopefully now you can see, and shall I rotate that so it's at the same angle? So in the photo, I know I said I was going to use the same lighting. Actually, that was a lie, because in the photo those hands are really, really blanched, and I don't think that really works. It looks a bit odd. Okay, so I am going to add a little bit more colour in them, and I don't want them to be too detailed, so let's just put up some. I'm using a mixture of brushes, and I'm going fairly small now that I'm on a sort of later stage, but use quite a lot of rosemary brushes and some synthetic ones. So these are, that's a classic long flat, it's quite small, that is number 2. So, and I apologise to the purists, I am actually going to mix my paint with my brush. So I'm not going to oil them in because I only painted them yesterday and they're not too bad. But I'm just looking to kind of take some general, fairly accurate lines that work for the colour. Let's move that right in. Okay. So, right. So I'll just mix up. I can maybe do that one. Okay. So I'm going to mix up. It's mostly this warm white, a little bit of acridone, but they're very yellow at the moment. I can see. That's cooling it down. Put a bit of burnt umber in with that. That's quite close to the painting, to the photo, but I think it's a little bit on the dead side, very grey. That's possibly a bit too pink, but let's try it. So really there comes a point where you just need to put a dab on, see how it feels. So those hands are in the light, and I'm looking for the planes. I'm looking for where I'm going to go with it. So I'm just looking for those planes that catch the top light. And that thumbnail. So using a very big brush relative to the detail, which means I'm going to zoom in for you. There you are, you can see now. Okay. Right, so I've just used, I know it's only a number 2 brush, but for this sort of scale of work, that's quite small. And let's go now. So that's really quite bright and pink, but I will go on the other hand as well because I want to keep them aligned with each other. So let's just show you that other hand too. There. So that hand is holding glasses. Hopefully you can see. And it gives me a chance to explain the anatomy a tiny bit more doing this. The bulges of the muscles of the fingers, and also this plane on top of the hand, like there. That's quite flat there, so it gives me a chance to show that. Right, I'm going to go for a little more. So that's it's really pink. So I will orange it slightly, kill it down a little bit. Try that. Yeah. Okay, that looks much better. A much better match. I'm not worrying at all about stroke direction, just trying to be really faithful to what I observe and trust that the strokes will work. Tiny highlight there on the thumb. Okay, a little bit actually between those, yeah. And then you can see there's the other hand. Does this work for you? Is this okay in terms of display? Just tell me if it's not easy to see. So, that. Doing a bit of squinting. So this edge here is catching the light. There. That plane there on top. I took the very unusual step of actually using some line on these hands because on the photo I observed some really defined line creases. So I just went with it, even though I wouldn't normally draw with the brush, particularly this late in the process. Right. The posture of the hand can really show a lot about the feeling of the subject, can't it? You can have a very confident posture of a hand, or a very and I really wanted to make these confident, you know, like piano hands, where if I move that out a little bit, so you can see when you have hands, you can do kind of this sort of thing, or you can do a real like that, and I wanted these hands to be really like a kind of over the top, but not tense. So that position is quite hopefully indicative. Right, and then I am going to put in over those shadow areas a tiny bit. So I'm going to wipe my brush a little bit, and I'm just going to darken that down a little bit. I don't need to do the whole lot. Really looking for what colours I see in the shadows, and I do see a bit of a lilac there and here on this lower section of the figure, there just above the go even darker, and put a little bit of burnt umber in as well, otherwise it's really saturated. Get these kind of triangles there at the top between the fingers. I feel like that might be enough, especially once one steps back. Now this hand has a lot more, is in a lot more shade, so it's got more contrast, which would suggest it was possibly closer to the light source. There's a little bit of that pinkiness. There's almost a little bit of pink, like I'm going to put a tiny bit of reflected light there on that. That's the arm of the chair. And then I just want to get that fat pad there on the like there, that bit there, which it does have quite a yellow ochre-y kind of weird colour in the photo, very distorted, but I'm just going to be pretty close and see what happens. Okay, that looks, when I don't step back, that looks okay. I don't think about it too much, I'm just not going to think about it too much. And then looking for parallels, I see very much the same kind of hue and value here on this edge of the chair. Up there, that's the arm of the chair, and that's catching a similar light. It's actually at the same angle, isn't it, to that? So let's put that in there. Try and make that corner a bit sharp so that it's obvious it's not an organic shape there. Right. So they look very pink. And a very pale, but they're kind of meant to catch the light, so maybe in the context of the whole picture that might be alright. We'll see. Right, let's move on, and I'm not going to agonise over that too much. So I was just going to put a little highlight on the bin. So here's the bin down here, just there. Make sure you've got the camera on it. There we are. Right. Can you see that? Hi. Visitor. Hello. Oh, thank you, darling. Thank you so much. Completely off camera if you like. Thank you. I hope whatever you're up to, you've got some tea arriving as well, or something nice. You can always pause this. If I empty that one. If I empty. Hello, Gabrielle. Hi. Right. So where are we? Yes. So this highlight then on this bin. There is a very, very slight highlight. So if I go to the reference photo, and I will let me find the section on the reference photo so I can show you. So I will, it's over this way. Just take me a second, and that way I can show you kind of up close. It's this. There's the bin. And you can see I've already put a bit of a highlight on it. Yeah. There's a very nice dent down there, and I just want to put that little highlight on that edge there, and maybe check the angles of the edges here. Let's get that focused in. Hopefully you can see that. So it is quite a warm highlight, and it is just catching that top edge. So I'm going to use a finer brush. Here we are. This has got a point. I don't know what this is. Royal Soft. It's clearly synthetic, whatever it is. Right. And I'm just going to mix up a tiny bit. So remembering I don't want to go a bright white at all. So I'm just going to make a warm, and I am going to put a couple of other colours in it just to, again, to saturate it and make it not too strong. So I want it strong enough to give a sense that this is a piece of metal, but not so strong that it so strong. Let's move that up there. So there's a tiny bit at the back there, and a bit at the front here. And I haven't mixed it up really thick, because I don't really want it to read as a dominant thing. There. Okay, and there's also one on the pedal, you can see just there, which helps to describe the form because it is kind of in the shadow. There, right. And there's even a tiny bit on here as well, that's handy. But there. Unusually I'm holding the paintbrush like a pen, drawing a line. Right, so you probably wouldn't even notice that, but right. And while I'm there, sometimes when I'm dotting around a painting, I will accidentally put dabs of other paint, and you can see I've got one there. So I might just, and I quite like the kind of smoothness of the colours on here. So I'm just going to go over, before I come off that bin, and then make a personal note not to go dabbing around it again. I'm just going to try and mix up something vaguely approximating what's there. So that kind of a sort of bluey browny colour. Actually a nice kind of incorporate that a little bit, because it's really, I think it was the light bouncing off my top onto the bin. So let's some of the bin, and it very much connects with that bottom edge. Possibly gets a bit bluer as it gets higher up. It's a bit light. Still too light. I still want it to be darker than that ridge there, because I want that ridge to stand out. And this top edge is actually a very similar hue. And I'm going to carry on this dark here, so the perspective on the bin isn't quite right, I don't think, in there. Painting. And I think it's that lid. So I'm going to take some dark. So to mix up a black, or thereabouts, I'm going to just mix up what's called a chromatic black. So I'm just taking some French ultramarine and some burnt umber. And then I can really easily control if it's cool or warm. Like just, you know, I don't know if there's a unit of colour temperature. And it's got a tiny bit of the other colours in it, so it's not absolutely deepest, darkest black, which is fine. Right, and down for a second. So focus in. Here we are. Okay, and I think I need a straight edge. My stick's a bit long. Let's see what I can. I'm going to get a short stick from back here. Lots of sticks. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm continuing the line, the underside of the table there, just a little step longer, just to give me a nice straight edge here. Okay. That. Great. And then the lid of the bin actually carries on to that edge, so that edge lid will come out. So now I can mix a lighter colour and reposition the top edge of the lid. I'm going to keep that black on my brush and just add in some of those lighter colours. So it's not a really standout colour. I don't want it to pop, just want it to contrast with the black, come up. That comes up like that to there. And now I think that reads better as this is a vertical shelf here of the bin. Get a little bit more light on the top edge of it. Okay, and also I think I need to reinforce that dark band. So go back with my dark. Make sure it's not too blue. Take that edge. See, all right? Yeah. Right, now I think that bin actually looks a whole load more like the bin, which is a really good development. I'll just take you back a little bit so you can see the whole picture and see where those changes are that I've done. Bear with me 1 second, I will take that down, that frame. And turn it round. There. Let's go on. I'll move my face out of the way. There we are. So I think now, from a sense of reading it right, that there we go. You can see the bin. The bin now doesn't jump out as a problem area. The hands are still a bit flat. Might do another pass over them with a little bit of detail, but the bin just looks more like the bin, which is always good. Right, so next I'm going to look at this is a bit of a tricky bit. I'm going to look at these lines here. And while I've got a little bit of dark, I'm just going to put that on the feet of the chair just to ground them. Yeah, so these structural lines on the tiles are mostly there, but some of them aren't quite in. And I just wanted to put them in just to anchor where they go. So I go so you can see. So Instagram lovely people, I'm not going to show you my face for a little bit because I want you to be able to see the see more of the painting. There we are. So it's these areas here. So this here, these lines here, just need to be lightly defined a bit more. Then I can go in and fill in the tiles. So all the tiles are slightly different. This is the tiles on the floor, so it is my studio floor. There they are in real life. There's my foot. And just in the course of the painting, I slightly lost track of some of these perspective lines. So I'm just going to go in and restate them. So again, with not particularly strong paint. Once I've located them, then I will be able to kind of embellish, but I just really first need to, in a very neutral colour that's not going to show up much, I want to just position them. So using my high-tech stick object, wipe it. It's very easy to get stuff on your stick and then end up using it. Okay, so I'm looking at the location on the reference photo. Oops, that one. I haven't been completely slavish with the but I do really want to get quite close. So that there. All these tiles were laid by our builders when we had our basement done. It was quite an operation having these tiles put in. And they do form a recognised pattern. So the tiler had a big had a description to work from, like a crib sheet. I don't like that white there. Not quite right there. Do that. You see where I'm working. Yeah, let me just check. There we are. Okay. They're very angled at this point. So I'm looking at this one I've got in here and this one and just making sure they make reasonable sense in relation to that. Right. Quite see how that's more. Okay. Right, and I've got some here which I'm not sure if they're right. Okay, so that one's not right, but that one looks fine. And actually they track back here in the background. They go back into here. Right, now what's going on in the middle between the legs? I've got this line here which connects up with this one, so that's there. And once I've located these, then I will be able to go over them with some colour that matches what's happening in the shadows. Oh, hi Joe. It is sitting nicely. Thanks yesterday. Sorry that took me a little while to see your comment. Let me come on. Thank you. Thanks guys. It's so nice to see your familiar faces watching. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Don't worry, I'm not going to call you out. So I've just now marked out credible positions for a few tiles, and then I can go in and put some edges in colours that match. I need to work out what's going on here. One. Through here. That'll do. I don't need them to be exactly right, I just need them to not jump out as wrong. Let's show you there, okay. So I've put, you can probably see, in a sort of neutral grey, I've just marked out where those lines are going to be, and now I can mix up some colour for the differences. So basically I want to make sure I've got a lighter colour here where the tiles are where the tiles are in the light, I'm going to use a lighter colour, and then when the tiles are in shadow, I will use a darker colour. So let me mix up some paint for those. I'm going for the colour in the dark, in the shadow, so the colour of the joins between the tiles. So if I show you the tiles, you can see they're actually, it's like the grout is like a stone colour, but in shadow it needs to be darker. So I need it to be lighter than the shadow, but not as dark. There we go. So it's one of those nice phenomena that I really like it when this happens, when the light value in the shadow is the same as the dark value in the light, when you get sort of things next to each other. And I just think it's a really nice effect. Looks really good. Looks really cool when it happens. Very keen on this. Is that a really huge tile? How about that? Right. I'm just going to paint slightly over that just to lose it a bit. I might even have to sand that out. So what I'm looking for is any areas of grout between the tiles that's in the shadow area. So I think that's pretty much all of them. And now I can go in with a colour. I'll mix up a version of that for the later one. So here we go. Thank you guys. If you've joined on Instagram, it's really lovely to see you. Let me come on the screen. Hello. Right. I think I've got the drawing board here. You can see there. So you'll be able to see much better if you use the link in my bio and go onto YouTube, and you'll get a better view. But it's lovely to see you, and I can see your comments. I'm just a bit slow. Right, let's go back to the drawing board. Okay. So I'm now mixing up a colour just to complete the joins between the tiles. So I've got this warm white, which is a lovely Michael Harding white. It can be fairly opaque. I'm mixing a little bit of medium in, breaking the rules, mixing the medium in with the paint with my brush, but just making sure it's well blended because it needs to be fairly homogeneous. And then let's go over, can you see? Right, here we go. So here's a bit of a join between the tiles there, in the light, and there. So it's this continuation here of the dark, the join in the dark, and the join in the light. And here, this is also, let's see if I can see there. Okay, here. That's currently grey because I mapped it out with that grey. Going with a lighter there. And these are all it all sounds a bit strange, but I think what it means is that it'll look okay once it's once you step back. So a bit of light going in. You can go a tiny bit lighter. So this light is, there's a real sense of a passage of light behind the figure at the back. and I want to try and keep that. While I've got this on my brush, I might actually do that highlight there. There we go, right in at the groin. So here is the highlight on the photo, just there, which really explains the anatomy of the chair there. I've done it a bit bright, so but I can glaze that back after. And I've got a similar colour I want on the handle. Yeah. If I move the camera, then hopefully you won't get the glint of the light there. I'm just going to put that same colour of light, because they are facing the same direction, those. And hopefully they will show the shiny chair. Might be a bit bright, but I'll wait and see. It might be okay. Sometimes these things look a bit terrifying when you first put them on. There's a there. Lost its way slightly. They're pretty regular, these tiles. Okay, and got some up here too. Some there. See that? Yeah. So this is my studio skeleton, who's known as Steve. And then I haven't over detailed Steve. And I'm using a thicker brush. You know, I'd love to go in with a thin brush. It's really, really tempting. But I want to keep the unpredictable lines that you get with the thinner brush. With the fatter brush. I want to sort of deliberately sabotage myself. Okay, and hopefully you can see there. Can you see I've got one more here? Right, and I will use this then to put in just a few little specks of texture, so you can see there are the actual tiles. If I go right down, you can see they've got really beautiful, they're travertine, they've got really beautiful texture, and they are quite different colours. So let's put some of that on those tiles as well. So while I've got this colour, I'm just going to go, and they're very different. You know, they've obviously been cut from different areas, which is a lovely effect. To kind of move the brush round, be unpredictable with my brush, not too deliberate. Obviously the marks would get smaller as they go to the background. And then let's use some of that in the, so this is the foreground of the painting. So I'm just going to move the painting over a little bit so you can see that area. Let's go over to there. Right. So this is really the foreground here. There's that foot. Okay. And basically I'm just going with the fact that different tiles have very different textures, so trying to keep a sense of that. And I'm going to do that playing with this effect I was talking about. So there's the shadow, and so this tile here is half in shadow, half in light. So I think I can really have a nice play with that, because I can go quite light for some of this texture here, and then where it hits the shadow I will continue that texture but in a darker colour, just slightly, and it will hopefully read really like the tile. They're not quite as eye-catching as they could be, some of these joints. Right, so I've got a few little bits of white there, and then and that there will be in light, that line up to there, up to the shadow. And then once it goes in shadow, it changes colour. and we've got that on there. So I'm just going to mix up a very slightly darker light, hopefully dark enough, yeah, and then carry on that texture, or maybe even go a tiny bit darker. So showing that that same texture is present on the tile in the shadow, it's just a different colour, if that makes sense. And here it's even darker because that's got a double shadow, so it's the shadow cast from, there are two lights in two different directions. So in here as well we'll have that same texture but even darker. There. Hopefully that will make some sense. When you step back. Right, yeah, there. I don't know if this is making any sense at all. Right, so let's put a little bit on this one as well while I've got that same colour. So I'm going to go, and because this tile is, you know, the angle of the viewer, this tile here, again, these marks will have a very slight, you know, they're like the patterns on an animal or on fabric as it turns. They change shape. So if these were perfect circles, they would be ellipses here, wouldn't they? So I think you can reflect that just in the tendency, even when you're doing made-up patterns, you can reflect it in the tendency of the shapes. And then have a lighter version in the light, like there in that same tile. In the light, those patterns will be lighter. Now, I want to also help with a bit of the realism of those tiles by looking at some of the joints between the tiles. See, and just picking a few of them out, just a few sample ones. And so what I'm going to do is mix up a slightly lighter, again quite opaque, and just go in, just to pick out a few. That's not warm enough. So this is one of those, it's like when you do a building, if you're doing a painting of a building, you can do the brickwork on the building without explaining every brick. And this was something my late father explained to me. So he died when I was 10. So it must have been before then, and it always stuck with me that you don't have to explain every brick. He was an architect, so it was back in the day when architects would do a lot of their own, basically illustration. They were illustrating for clients, and he was saying that as long as you've got a few little areas of the building showing the brick texture, the brain just fills the rest in. So that's what I'm trying to do here, is just have a few. So if I do them all, it will look really, I think it will look really clunky, even clunkier than it does. But if I look at the way the tiles are, and I'm lucky I can actually look at the tiles at my feet, I can see, you can as well, how I'm doing that, just picking out particularly the joints where they've been slightly curved at some of the edges, which gives that effect of a little highlight in the edges. And that one there, very lacking in texture. Oh, and these ones here are missing texture as well, so let's get that. So also on the tiles there is a little dark area where they catch a bit of shadow, so I will do that on a few of them too. This is, and as we reach the foreground, oh sorry, right, let me move that a bit. There. So these tiles here are really big, so I'm going to be a little bit bolder, a little bit brighter, as they are closer to the viewer. Just be a little bit more explanatory about those corners, because the viewer is kind of looking down on those tiles more. This one, joint. Right. Oh, we've got there's a line here completely missing. Look at that there. Put that in. And then these ones here. So I have some tiles here behind the bin, which I didn't have. I'm just going to get my ruler, my stick. Where's a stick? Okay. Give myself a bit of a hand here with that stick. Make sure it's a continuation of those ones up there. And I'm using the light colour, so I'll only go up as far as that shadow, because in exactly the same way, that bit, the shadow there will be darker. And then let's get some of that dark colour for the join between the tiles in the background behind the bin. Fine. And that one there is going to go like that. Right, and I think these tiles do need a bit of texture too. This one's down there, and that one needs a edge off. Okay. Right, little cup of tea. Move that out of the way. Right, so I'm just going to pause for a minute and say hello and talk a little bit about what's going on in this picture, what I'm trying to do. So I'll take this camera back out. There's the painting. There's a way I can do this without that camera being in your view. There. Okay, so now I can say hello. This camera here, so you don't have that. There. Oh, hello. I've got my phone here, so if you leave me any comments on Instagram, I can see them. Have a cup of tea, got my thing. So here we are. I've got, I'm kind of 95% through. Here's the painting. It's slightly distorted there, but so today that's the hands, a bit more filling in on the hands, quite a lot of navigating around the tiles, I'm not going to stop just yet. I was going to just have a cup of tea. This is my palette at the moment. Yeah, so if you've got any questions, don't hesitate to ask. And I'm really just in these last stages trying to keep an eye on the whole big picture and keep an eye on the how far to go with detail. Hopefully not very far, not very much further. I thought I might actually reduce the detail on the face a little bit. It's I'll show you. I had it really loose, and now I've kind of gone the other way. I think I might have gone a bit too detailed with that face there. Don't know what you think. Don't like me. Yeah, just that the nice thing about doing self-portraits is you don't have to worry about flattery or making people look not how they want to look. So I'm really enjoying not having to check back with anyone and make sure that I've got the because often I think people look fantastic and they see it, and perhaps they've got a thing about themselves that they're not so keen on, like they might not like the size of their hands or something, and I might have slightly accentuated it, or they might just want it to be less pronounced, whereas when you're doing self-portraits you don't have to worry about any of that, which is really great. Yeah, so I'm just trying to resist the temptation to make all the highlights really bright. I think what I might do actually is now I'm just going to knock this one back a little bit. So this painting here is actually, I'll show you, it's up on the wall. Can you see, where is it? There. You can just see at the bottom of the screen, hopefully. Can you see that? It's my daughter, and although it does have quite a lot of contrast, in the painting it's jumping out a little bit too much, I think. So it's just that shadow area. So I'll go in a second when I've had my cup of tea. Right. Oh, Debs, how do you know when to stop overworking and all that? It does look like you though, resting face. Yes, thanks, Debs. Yeah, you're right. It is a bit of a resting face thing. Thank you yesterday. Yeah, and unifying. Yeah, that is a real thing. Trying to do that. Yes. So, Debs, there is definitely a point, I think, when I put the brush down and it's almost like an alarm bell goes off, and I can find myself just fiddling, and then quite often then I'll sleep on it, and the next day I'll come up and just do another couple of touches. One really good thing for checking if it's finished is looking at it in a mirror, and just stepping back. So and also asking people. So I don't know about how other artists who are watching what you think, but I'm really keen on asking other people's opinions, whether it's my 10-year-old Tom or an artist or anyone who comes by, and specifically non-artists as well, because it's all about what it says to the when you have fresh eyes, to the uninitiated. It's really nice to get their view. So I really like. So I was consulting a friend the other day. I've got some drip marks down the bottom. You can still just see them. I don't know if you can see those. Where are we? Can you see? There's some. They're actually vertical. They're just under the painting, and it's the ground where it dripped when I was first doing it. And he said, yeah, they did catch my eye. So it's really good to get reflections from people about what catches their eye. Whether you act on that feedback is a completely personal thing. And if you ask in a way that they know, they're free to say, and you're not going to be offended, and also in a way that you kind of make it clear that you may or may not act on that, but I think it's really helpful personally. And I think some people see it as a weakness, you know, they see it as a deference to other people and that you should have a strong vision. I just think it's all interesting, and it's flattering when people give you suggestions and give you ideas, or they share their responses. I think it's an act of trust on their part to give you their reaction to your painting, because they're trusting you not to get defensive about it, and not you know, all that sort of thing. So yeah, so I hope that answers your question about how you know when to stop. I think it'll be fairly soon, and then I think I'll probably go away for a little bit and come back and do a little bit more. So I'm going to move the canvas over a little bit and then knock back that picture of Izzy. That's actually her hair and shadow here. Let's go onto the drawing board. Okay. Up. Sorry about all this jiggery pokery with the cameras. Right, so I will show you, or I can move this. I can move us around. So it's up here. It's along here. Here is the picture. If I do that and that. So what you've got here is the reference photo there, and there is there you can see my version, and it's slightly go there. You can see that now. Yeah, and so I'm not really looking at shapes now. I'm just looking at colours. So I've got it fairly close. I think actually that shape is distracting, that light. So having said I'm not looking at shapes, I am going to look at shapes. So I'm going to wash my brush off because it's a little bit caked in white. And thank you yesterday. I think that that going over around the whole picture really helps with unifying. Okay, so I'm going to just pick into that background a little bit more with a version of the whitey blue. So can you see my palette there? So I'm just going to take, I've got a little bit of medium here, a little puddle. Not going for mega clean colours, and that is a warm white. So that's also going to make sure it's not... I do need a tiny bit of yellow in that blue. Okay. And let's just get the shape right. It really goes in at the neck, and then she's got this lovely graceful sloping shoulder, and that goes there. She hasn't really got an ear shape visible. And there's actually some blue over here. The head is slightly smaller. That looks more like her. Funny, isn't it, how if you change the background, the colours look totally different. A really long neck. Which way am I? Right, and yeah, I still feel like that blue, that brown shadow is just a tiny bit too dark. So I'm going to kind of mix it up again, but with my dirty brush, so that it's got more white in it. trying to get the right sort of hue. It's quite a warm, I'm going to put a little bit of that. Let's try that. I think that's going to be too dark, too light. Use some of that, what's it called, yellow ochre, that shadow. Particularly knock back that neck, so that's less. Several portraits in this. Portraits of my family. Yeah, that's really knocked it back. And to your point yesterday about unifying, let's just take this opportunity to look around, see if there's any unifying that can happen around here in related areas. That colour on there. This is just this is where I have all my it's like a glassine brown paper wrapped around glass that's waiting to be used on frames, and then this is like some transparent stuff. Who would ever know? Doesn't matter, I know, but it's just nice to have a sense of what it is for the record. Right. Now let's have a look. What else have we got? Move that out of the way. Yeah, so this painting here I think probably needs the same treatment. There's a couple of areas which somehow jump out more than they should, I think, on here. And right, so then I really want to get this arm here coming down. So let's go for let's see what picks up. Yeah, so here between the legs, that needs to come up a little bit higher. I'm just looking for anything on my palette that's vaguely the right colour, because it will be self-unifying. More important that it's the right value. I am thinking about maybe entering this painting into one of the opens coming up, and if I do, I need to check the date when they close, when you have to have done it by. But I was also tempted to enter this one at the same time as it features in the painting, but we'll see. Oh, that's really bright. There's a bright bit here. Might have to knock that back in a minute. Use a rag. Just trying to go for little additional contrast as possible. Right. And then there's a bit of a sort of browny red. There's a hand back here. Oops, sorry. There's a hand here. So I'm just going mixing up. Probably mostly burnt umber and alizarin crimson, which would have been the colours I would have used probably in that hand. Or burnt umber, I think. To get that arm going there. And then the dark at the back I can bring down a little bit. Because it actually hits the top of the head like that. So on the actual picture, this is like black. It's a dustbin. It's the dressing up box actually. But you'll see if I put black in there now, it probably looked too dark. So luckily that's all greyed out with my dirty brush, so that's about right. So I can define the edge of the bed too. I do want it to look like the picture because the picture is part of the bigger picture, because this portrait here was a really, you know, it's included partly because it was such a significant moment in my own art journey. You know, meeting Cheryl and having someone show such confidence in my my ability to do what we were attempting. Far more confidence than I had actually, Cheryl had. Actually a bit of shadow on top of that hand there, that might give it a little bit more structure. Shadow here. Now this is a jar of brushes, which has got a bit smudged with some blue. So I'm going to go in there. It's just the stuff on the table. I just want to make sure it doesn't show too much the splodge that's going with a few random paintbrush colours. Just do a couple of and there is actually a highlight there on the vase and on a couple of the brushes up here. And on this. Stuff. Right, there's another one. That was another bottle of stuff. Right, now do we think Cheryl's finished in terms of that? I think that'll be. Yeah, that's good enough. Right, Debs, I can hear you in my head saying stop. So I will. Right, so once this stream is done, I will see if I can move that so that you've got the whole painting showing. There, it's not quite at the right angle. Yeah. Go there. No. Right, I know what I'll do. I'll just turn the whole thing upright so I can have a few words in front of the whole painting. There it is. There's the bin, look. Excuse me 1 second while I try and get it. Right, and what I could do then is paint. There, right. Ah, how's that? A bit better. Okay. So, now I can't see. How's that? Okay, so here we are, just about at the end. There's a bit of light shining on that. Not if I do that. There. So I'm hoping now that the figure sits forward a lot more. You can see when it's presented like this on, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the reference photo next to it, and you can see that the posture's slightly different, and things are slightly, but I think everything I've done, I've tried to kind of move that sense of, it's, you know, it's power, it's intended to illustrate power, the power relationship, and particularly around judgment, and you know, just looking at my perception of how somebody in the act of judging might physically display, you know, in their posture, the act of judging. That makes sense. And that sense of not needing to put any, you know, not putting any special clothes on, not putting any makeup, not putting your hair down, pretty much like I am really. So yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for following along with this. I'm really enjoying this painting. I'm talking in the present tense because I feel it's probably got another few little tweaks, but it's pretty much there now. And I'm not going to bore you, but I will paint these edges. So those edges there, I'm just going to do a sort of average colour. And then hopefully if it does get framed, it will be framed with a gap. And then then people will just see as it folds round, but you never know, it may never get framed. Okay, so thank you so much for joining, for people who've joined. Thank you for your comments and questions. It's really lovely to see you. I hope you're having a nice weekend. Let me go back on here, and I can, there we are. Sorry, Instagram and friends. So thanks, I really appreciate you coming on, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.